Hello YouTube, this is Santotaku with Team By the Trigger. Today I'm bringing you another deck profile of the deck I'll be playing at my local tournament this Saturday. Since I was finally able to make some trades and get the last cards I needed to finish my Oracle Think Tank deck last weekend, I wanted to use it in tournament play one more time before the strategy is completely revamped with the release of BTO3. After the release, I plan on building a Tsukiyomi-based build, and you can find a link to the future build and profile of that deck in the description below. But for now, here's my current OTT deck.
Starting from the top, we have 4 copies of CEO Amaterasu. This is a very valuable card for the deck. It's pretty much the win condition. Every turn you're allowed to soul charge 1 card in order to look at the top card of your deck, and from there you can decide to keep it on the top or the bottom. So some pretty obvious combos there. If it's a trigger, you're obviously going to keep it on the top. And in order to get its effect, 5,000 power somewhere. If it's a crit trigger, get some extra damage through, draw trigger, whatnot. Very valuable. If it's a perfect guard, you usually want to keep it on top, and you can use other cards in your deck to draw it out, bring it to your hand, or you can just drive it. Pretty much anything valuable, CEO will help you find, and you'll be able to draw and know it's coming. It's just really good. It's how you win the game. She also has a Mega Blast, which, if you don't know what Mega Blast is, it's when you Soul Blast 8 and Counter Blast 5. When she lands an attack, you get to draw up to 5 cards from your deck. It's good. It never really comes up. You're either not going to get the soul for it, or you're not going to be able to have enough face-up counter blasts. Overall, it's a really good card, though, so it's definitely a 4 of. It's pretty much how you win the game with Oracle Think Tank as of right now. As the backup Vanguard / Grade 3 Rear Guard, just 3 copies of Oracle Guardian Apollon. When he's a rear guard, you can counterblast 2 to draw a card after he lands a hit, and if he's the Vanguard, you can counterblast 2 to draw 2 cards and put 1 back in your deck. A really good way to put triggers back there, especially like draw triggers or whatnot, or any other card you don't really have a need for, just to be able to get through your deck a little bit faster. So it's pretty good to have. It's really the only option right now. The only other Grade 3 Oracle Think Tank card is Omniscient Madonna, which I playtested a little bit. It's pretty much a Grade 3 version of Eremo or Sagamore, where when they boost and you land an attack, you get to discard and draw a card. Omniscient Madonna doesn't need to get boosted. She just lands an attack and discard and draw, which is pretty helpful, but I think that for my money, Apollon is the better card. It's the only Grade 3 Oracle Think Tank that's worth running right now outside of Amaterasu, which is going to change after this weekend. So just the 7 Grade 3s, we're going to move on to the Grade 2s. I'm running 4 copies of Silent Tom, and I'm only running 4 of them because I had 4 of them. I traded for the 4th one this weekend, and it's been, the bit I've played with it's been working out pretty well for me. The key to this card, though, is to remember that you really cannot drop him in play until you have your 8k vanilla booster, because that's the only way he's going to hit a magic number. Once you have an 8k behind him, he's at 16. Since there's no 7ks in the deck, because there's none released right now, he can only hit 16, and that's where you want him at. So if for whatever reason you're not getting the Oracle Guardian Gemini to get him to 16, he's going to be discard fodder for your perfect guard. He's going to be a 5k shield, so having multiple copies of him is pretty big, because once he's in play and your opponent can't guard against him with any grade 0s, which is part of his effect, he just wins games. There have been so many times where I've had an Amaterasu as my Vanguard, spotted a crit trigger on top, I kept the card on top, my opponent knows there's a trigger coming, in most situations, so they'll perfect guard against Amaterasu, and I will apply the crit and the power to my Silent Tom, and there's a 21k attack, but they can't use any 0s to guard, so unless they have another perfect guard, which still works in my favor pretty well, he's just a monster. I'm running 2 copies of Battle Sister Mocha. Once you have 4 cards in your hand, she's an 11k attacker. That's pretty good. I mean, the main problem I have with Oracle Think Tank right now is that they have a really hard time hitting the magic numbers. So any high power units that you can put in your deck are probably worth running. Keeping 4 cards in your hand is really not as hard as you would think. especially with this deck, and especially after you're at the Twin Drive state. And if you feel like next turn you're not going to be able to keep 4 cards in your hand, you can just intercept with her. And so that's, I mean, she's pretty good, and only 2 copies of them are fine. I was playing around with Maiden of Libra as well. She's like Apollon, where you can counterblast 2 to draw a card. I just decided that Mocha is probably working out better for me because it's harder to get Libra up to a number that can do decent damage. But overall, I think they're both pretty good cards, so it's really player's choice. Two Security Guardians. These are the special interceptors. They're just really solid. They're really good against cards like an opposing Silent Tom. Special interceptors are a nightmare for Silent Tom. Any bit of extra defense, since the power of my rear guard is so low, is pretty helpful. And you know, just it helps to conserve cards in hand. So cards like Battle Sister Mocha can keep their 11k power because I won't need to drop a 10k shield from my hand. So overall, it's pretty helpful in this deck. Not everyone really needs special interceptors, but I think in the current incarnation of Oracle Think Tank, they're pretty important. Last spot is just 4 of Oracle Guardian Wise Man, which is their vanilla 10k beat stick. You know, it's like I said before, you have a hard time hitting magic numbers in Oracle Think Tank because of the lack of 7k boosters. A 6k gets him to 16, which is all you really need. That's the only power you really need in this deck. You're not going to be hitting 21 in at every column every time. So having the 10k to get an easy 16k with the plethora of 6k boosters is just going to be really helpful for your offense. So 4 of him is, I think, right now required. Moving on to the grade 1s. 4 copies of Battle Sister Coco. She's a grade 1 Amaterasu for a turn. When you call her into play, you get to look at the top card of your deck and decide to keep it on the top or bottom. This is a really good first turn play, so you can know what you're going to take damage as or what you're going to drive next. And if you don't want it, you can put it at the bottom. There's been a lot of times where I will go first, I drop this as my Vanguard, and I will look at top card to heal trigger. I just move it to the bottom because I don't want to take it as my first damage. It's not going to help me at all. And I have my Lozenge Magus who's going to shuffle the deck anyway, so I actually don't lose out on anything right now. And then late game, if I already have Amaterasu out, I will hold on to this card until after Amaterasu peaks at the top card of my deck. If I don't find a trigger, I'll go ahead and put it at the bottom. I'll call Coco so I can look at the second card. If it is a trigger, I'll know that it's there. If it's not a trigger, I'll put it at the bottom, and then I've gotten 2 cards closer to my next trigger. So it's been I've won a lot of games like that. My opponent will get mad after seeing me bottom deck 2 cards, and then I double trigger, or I get a trigger on my next attack, and it's just great increasing your odds, and that's what Oracle Think Tank does best right now, I think. So it's really good to have, especially 4 copies of it has worked out really well for me. Next is 2 copies of Weather Girl Milk. When I have 4 or more cards in my hand and she boosts, she becomes a 10k booster. Really what it comes down to is you run this or you run Petal Fairy. Petal Fairy is this clan's version of Eremo. I just like this card better because it can get Amaterasu up to 24k, which, I mean, most of the time that's just pretty much a 15k guard against an 11k opposing Vanguard. Or if your opponent somehow has a 9k Vanguard, it would be a 20k guard. So that's pretty good. And with Apollon, it becomes a 20k, so I can punish the 10k Vanguard. So that's nice. I think that's really useful to the deck because it doesn't have a ton of power. 4 copies of Chocolat. I'm not really part of the debate on 4 or 3, what's the magic number of perfect guards. I have 4, I'm running 4. It has not caused me any problems to have 4 of them. They're good backup boosters if I have too many of them. Otherwise, they're just great to have against more offensive decks than mine. And Think Tank is not exactly a super aggressive deck because it has a hard time getting boosters, like I had mentioned. So if I can bide my time while I get my perfect setup, and this card, I can win, and this card helps me get to that point where I can bide my time. So just too useful to have, especially with all the aggressive decks out there like Spike Brothers. Absolutely essential for Oracle Guardian Gemini. I have 8 different grade 2s that have 8k power. Mocha can get up to a point where she doesn't need this, but the other 2, Tom and Security Guardian, need this to get to 16k. I will not play Tom until I have one of these. I could play one of these beforehand. I'll put it in front of an Interceptor or whatnot, so that when that card leaves the field, I'll be able to put Tom there and have an aggressive 16k column. Otherwise, though, I try not to drop these too early. I try to save them for the right card and the right time. What's also pretty notable is that behind Amaterasu, it's a 22k column, which is essentially a 21k column. So that's really helpful. It's really helpful to have. So, and last but certainly not least is Luckbird. Only a single copy of this. The reason this card is so helpful, first of all, what it does, when you play it, you get Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. And so with all the peeking you're doing at the top of your deck with Amaterasu and Coco, you get to pick and choose a card that you want. And so if there's a card that you like, you drop Luckbird, you get it for free. Luckbird's a free 5k booster, so it can still sit behind Wise Men against a 10k opponent, and it works great behind Mocha to hit 16k. And you get a free card out of it, so you lose nothing by playing this card. Your hand stays the same size, and you get +1 on the field, so that's pretty awesome. And if you drew anything above a grade or below a grade 3, you got your 5k shield back. So you can't really run more than 1 or 2 of these because of how low its power is. But it's really helpful to have, and you have the soul to use. This is the only card on the deck that really uses the soul, unless you're playing a Coco deck or something. But this is not a Coco deck, so this works really well here. Moving on to my trigger lineup, there are 4 copies of Lozenge Magus here. She is your starter and your heal trigger. I'm not exactly a fan of the moving triggers. They go to the back row, they boost for 6k, and then they go back in the deck. It's okay. I try not to boost with her too much because it just causes problems. I lose field presence, and I have to find another booster anyways, so it's only good for a turn. In an emergency, when you really need to push your opponent's hand or cut their hand size down, putting her behind something is going to work. Early game, getting your heal trigger back in the deck is helpful. I guess using a trigger as your starter gives you the space to run extra cards. Like in my example, I got to run an extra Luckbird as a result. So it's a good card, but I'm really looking forward to them getting a good booster. They have a Spark Kid clone in set 7, which I'm probably going to use unless I go the Coco route, or of course once Tsukiyomi comes out, I'll probably be playing that. But this works for now. It's a fine card. Four Psychic Birds and 4 Oracle Guardian Nikes make up my 8 critical triggers. Psychic Bird in particular is notable because what his effect is, you can move it into the soul and you get to draw a card, so it combos great with Coco and with Amaterasu. If there's a card on top you like, you can move it into the soul and draw it, and you don't have to waste your twin drive with a card that's not a trigger or whatnot. So this is pretty helpful. And it feeds the soul for Luckbird if you so choose early game. And then I think 8 criticals works really well in the deck because of all the stacking you're doing. It's pretty important to get things the way you want them to, and since you lack a lot of power, the aggression that crit triggers provide will help threaten your opponent. And lastly, the last of my triggers is 2 Dream Eaters and 2 Emergency Alarmers. A lot of people like running anywhere between 6 and 8 draw triggers in Oracle Think Tank. In my opinion, it's more about the quality of your draws than the quantity of draws, so I don't really feel the need to put a whole bunch of 5k shields in my deck. And the stand triggers are really underrated, not just in Think Tank, but across the board, but particularly in this deck with Silent Tom. By the end of the game, if my opponent's still low, standing a Silent Tom and attacking and making them blow a rear guard that's a grade 1 or grade 2 rear guard in order to protect against it is so huge, even if it's just one, because it stymies their attack, and I get a 10k shield out of it, so that's just great. Draw triggers are nice. I've played with 0 and I've played with 8, and so far 2 has been a perfect number for me. I don't get them too often, I don't get them too few, and I always have plenty of shield in hand. And it's not like other decks where you can get away with 5k boosters, and stand triggers make good use of that, because I don't have enough cards that can really get away with using a 5k booster. So running too many of them just not going to work. But the stand triggers, you should give them a shot, especially if you're running Libra too, because Emergency Alarmer, standing a Maiden of Libra, standing an Apollon, standing a Silent Tom, those are all great combos to get to really apply pressure on your opponent and blow their hand away. So that's the deck.
Once again, this has been Santotaku with Team by the Trigger. I hope you enjoyed. I also encourage you to like, favorite, subscribe as you see fit, and check out our blog featuring deck profiles, strategy articles, and clan analysis. As always, we always welcome you to ask us anything, and we'll try to answer your question in an article or a video or just in the comments below. And finally, for all players in the Chicago-land area, I hope you come visit us at Pastimes, Comics, and Games in Des Plaines. The local tournament has been getting bigger every week, and we have a pretty diverse crowd and collection of decks. The tournament is every Saturday at 1 o'clock, and I hope to see you there. Until then, this has been Santotaku. Thank you for watching.